Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the NRW. I'm your host today, Rob Medina, and I thank you all very much for joining me here today because today I'm going to be reviewing the movie Prey. So this is the brand new Hulu original film that's going to be coming out tomorrow on the 5th. And I had the opportunity to check out this movie, but I want to just take a step back here because when I first heard about this film, I believe it was a report that I read, I believe last year, if I recall correctly, and they had announced that there was a secret Predator movie that was that had been made. And at the time, the film was called Skull, which I thought was really, really cool as far as the title is concerned. And then it was actually going to be taking place in the 1700s, following a Comanche tribe, and I was all in on that. But I was still very much hesitant about that because there was a part of me that was concerned that although we may have a really interesting story to tell, it's not going to be a very good film because the last couple of Predator films that have come out in the last couple of years haven't always been the greatest, though. I will say, though, that I did thoroughly enjoy Predator 2. I think that was a good movie for what it was, that they were just taking a whole different approach with the story here, which I really did appreciate. It's not as good as the first one. I don't think any of the sequels have been as good as the first one. But apart from Predator 2 and the film Predators, which I thought was a really fun, enjoyable movie, way better than I thought it was than I anticipated. There's still something to be said about how well the first one holds up, and that there has not been a film that was been able to be at that same level of storytelling, action, and characters, and so on and so forth. Because again, all the Alien versus Predator films I don't like at all. The Predator, the film that came out back in 2018, I was so hyped for that movie, and then when I actually saw it for the first time with my son, I think well over a year ago, I just was so thoroughly disappointed with that film, and I didn't really think there was too much to be telling out of that franchise to really make an interesting story. But the fact that they were taking this story and focusing on a Native American tribe and the Comanche tribe, and focusing on a female character this time around, which I thought was very intriguing in the 1700s, I was really, really intrigued to see what they were going to be doing with this story. And I actually saw the trailer, or more or less a teaser, for the first time here on the NRW show to be exact, where I was really impressed with what I saw in that trailer, because to me the trailer insinuated that this is going to be very heavily a character focused story that just happens to feature a predator I should say, in this film. So having seen the movie for the first time not too long ago, I can truthfully say that this is by far the best sequel we've ever gotten in the Predator franchise. Is it as good as the first one? In time, I think I'll be able to answer that question better, but I will say right now, the first one is by far the best one here. This one is really close up there. But then again, you have to consider that not all the other films that have come out since Predator haven't always been the greatest. So there really wasn't a whole lot to compare it to in terms of which one is the better of the sequels, if you will. So this easily tops that as far as the rankings are concerned. But as far as being the best sequel, easily for sure. But is it better than the original one? In time, I will be able to answer that question, as I mentioned before. But there's so much about this film that I want to say that I'm not going to get into here because I don't want to spoil the movie here for you guys. But I will say that this is a movie that I think will impress a lot of people who are doubting this film. And when they come across this movie, I truly do hope and believe that many people that will be expecting the worst will be walking away thoroughly entertained, thoroughly impressed with the overall story and the overall film, and walking away anticipating another film. Because I think by the way this film is being handled here, but the fact it's being released on the streaming platform on Hulu, with enough word of mouth here and positive reaction and the viewership they'll be getting on that platform, I have no doubt in my mind that we're going to be getting a sequel to this movie in theaters. But of course, I'll get into the positives. I'm going to say the plot synopsis here, no spoilers. I will get into my positives, my negatives, and then my rating. The origin story of the Predator in the world of the Comanche Nation 300 years ago. Naru, a skilled female warrior, fights to protect her tribe against one of the first highly evolved predators to land on Earth. And that right there is the film in a nutshell. So now let's get into my positives. My first positive with this film is with the overall story in itself. As I already described in the plot synopsis here, we're following a character by the name of Naru, who is really the main focus of the story. And the thing about the story that I really found intriguing was that when you look at all the other previous Predator films, it's always male focused. It's a highly testosterone film. And this movie, on the other hand, takes an approach of just seeing it from a different perspective of, in this case, of a female warrior. I thought that was really intriguing because for the first time, we're actually seeing something where the hurdles that this character has to go through is going to be overwhelming for her. In a lot of people's eyes, when you look at her and you look at her frame, you look at her size and you clearly look at all the other male warriors that she's riding up against with here, or riding with here, I should say, in her tribe, and going up against the Predator in this movie, the odds are severely up against her. And that's something that was really interesting for me to see how they're going to be able to take on those challenges for this character, for her to be able to overcome this massive hurdle that she's having to deal with here in protecting her tribe, where a lot of the other tribesmen, especially the male ones, were not really believing everything that she says. Now, I'm going to point out too that there was a part of me that was concerned about how they were going to be handling the aspect of how she's a female, and that she's not going to be taken seriously, because I didn't really want to take on that cliche tropey approach that we've seen before in these type of stories. I really wanted something a little bit more effective if they're going to go down that route, if they were, which they do. And I actually thought they handled that quite well, because the actress that played Naru, whose name escapes me right now, but I'm sure I'll have her image for you to see here, but her take on this character, in my opinion, offers something rather unique, which is that the fact that she has several obstacles up against her. It's not just the Predator that she's up against, it's the overall male point of view of how they look at a female and saying, just stay here, do this, take care of him, things of that nature. She very much does not want to do that sort of stuff. I mean, she definitely wants to help out. There's no doubt about that. But having to overcome that hurdle as well too. Whereas in the male-driven stories, it's more about how the guy's the badass, and that some people think he's too much of a dick, or whatever the case may be, which is a very common tale that we see in these type of films, especially in the Predator franchise. But for a movie of this sort to focus on a character who is having to deal with the internal struggles of having to be suppressed in a lot of ways, and then having to rise above that suppression and rise above that opposition within her own tribe, and then at the same time protect her tribe when none of them believe what she's claiming about is this thing out there is not the creature that they think that's out there attacking the other tribe members, if you will. So there's a lot of overall several different hurdles that she has to overcome here, which I thought was extremely important to point out here, and how she was being able to overcome this said hurdle here really was quite fantastic in my opinion. Now, I'm also going to point out too about the look of the Predator in this movie, because I'm sure if you guys seen the trailer, that the look of the Predator here in the film is different from what we've gotten in the previous films we've gotten before, which I will admit, though, I do like that version of Predator, with the exception of what we kind of got in The Predator. But when it came to this movie, it made sense, considering that they clearly have evolved in terms of the look, the physicality, the weaponry, especially with going into a place back in a place where technology here on Earth was not available as it is right now, and understand how they were able to more or less be able to use the advanced technology in that type of environment, if you will. And I thought they did a really good job in balancing that out quite well to make it effective, but at the same time showcasing that this Predator is more or less just, you can clearly see that they're just pushing to test their limits, and they're just pushing to fight anything and anyone that can challenge them, so they can prove that they are by far the best killer out there, if you will, which is the theme for through all the Predator movies. But this one in particular, I thought was very unique in that respect, because you do actually get certain moments where you see that side of the character, where I'm not saying you don't pick on that before, but it's more or less kind of like from a point of view of a hunter who doesn't want to be seen, and is out there, and automatically this is a hunter that is top tier. But in this one, on the other hand, you get to see like that side of the character where he's looking for the challenge, and I thought that was really unique to tell from that perspective, because I don't recall ever getting that a lot of times from all the other previous films that we've got here with the Predator character. And I think the other thing I point out here with the positive, without really getting into spoilers here, is that there's a really wonderful aspect to this character of Naru, where she has a really good relationship with a dog that's always going with her. And there was a part of me, and I don't mind spoiling this here for this year, but there was a part of us concerned that dog was going to meet their demise, and that's not the case here. So if there's anything that I could, I'm happy to report here, is that the dog does not die, because that really was a concern for me, that they would go down that route, more or less that John Wick route, then give the character like this motivation to fight the Predator with, even though she already has motivation to begin with here. So the fact that they didn't do that, I was very, very appreciative of in that respect. And Yeah, and I could truthfully say that the action sequences in this movie are quite good. The overall characters in this movie, I did thoroughly enjoy. Are there some cliche aspects of it? Sure, there are, and I think that under the direction of Dan Trachtenberg, I think is how you pronounce his last name, he did a really good job. Considering this is actually a sophomore film, because the first film he directed, if I recall correctly, was 10 Cloverfield Lane, which is a kind of a film that's within the what's that movie, Cloverfield franchise, if you will. And I thought he did a fantastic job with this film too. So I can truthfully say that this is a film that I would definitely go back and watch again. And I would even go buy it as well too, to add it onto my already stacked up Predator collection here, even though I don't like most of them. But the fact is that we've got a good movie out of this year. I can truthfully say that this was by far one of the most surprising films I've come across here this year. So that's going to be the end of my positives. So now let's get into my negatives. As far as my negatives concerned, it's funny because when I first saw the movie, and I've only seen the movie once, but when I saw the movie, there was one part of the film that I'm not going to say who the Predator actually was facing, but I mentioned before in my positives that you get to see how the Predator is pretty much, you're seeing the perspective of how they're looking for the challenges, whatever is out there that is a formidable opponent for them to want to take out. I thought that was really interesting to see from that perspective. But the first challenge that they take on, if you will, as far as who they were going up against, seemed a little too easy for me at first. And I remember at the time thinking like, this doesn't seem to work for me right away. I mean, it was cool to see it, how it was handled. But I just remember thinking like, I got the impression that the Predators knew how good they were. So therefore they knew their skill levels to determine that this is not going to be a good one for me because I know I can wipe them out. So I'm going to move on to the next one until I find something else. Something to that effect. But then you see a part in the trailer, which is, this is not a spoiler here, but in the trailer, you see that the Predator takes on a bear. And that's a challenge what I was looking to see that they were going to be taking on, that was going to be a formidable opponent for them. And then in that exchange between the bear and the Predator, they go at it really hard. And you can see that the skill level of the Predator isn't up to par as far as like how good you thought he could be. I mean, he definitely is good. There's no doubt about that. But the fact that a bear was able to take him down for a good period of time, which was really cool to see, to be honest with you, I thought was really interesting. So then the idea of me thinking about the one other Predator that he was taking on that was hunting another creature that I thought was way too easy for them, because it was, that I didn't really connect with here, it made sense now, because then to me it made me realize that this character, or this Predator rather, is in the very, very early stages of their career, if you will, that I thought was really interesting to point out, because that was an initial negative for me personally that I thought didn't really work for me right away until I saw that scene, which I'd forgotten that was in the trailer, that I thought was so cool to see that the next set of challenges that were coming along the way for this Predator here, to see what they were at as far as their skill level is concerned and what they were seeking after here, and the different set of challenges they have to overcome along the way here too, which I thought was very intriguing. It's not that we haven't seen that before in the previous films. There's no doubt. I'm not saying that we haven't. We definitely have, but to see it at this at this angle here, I thought was very interesting. Which later on, my negative turned to be a positive. So I know it's not the best way for me to point this out here, but that's where the initial thought process was. But again, I've only seen the movie once, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that I'm missing out on here that I may be overlooking at this time, because I like to watch the film more than once so I can get a better analysis, or so that way I can give a proper point of view about what I didn't like about a film, or whatever the case may be. But I guess to some degree, I would say that there are certain cliches that we have seen before that didn't necessarily bother me, but I wouldn't say that I rolled my eyes, and it wasn't like that, but it was more like, oh, we've seen this before, kind of, let's move on to the next beat. That's kind of more or less the sentiment I had towards those particular moments in the film where we've seen these beats before. But otherwise, that's really all I can think of right now, that as far as the negative is concerned, where that I had my initial thought process, but then it changed along the way once the story progressed, because then it gave me a different perspective of the character that we're following here for the Predator, that I thought was really cool. But as far as any other negatives concerned, right now, I cannot say. I'm sure when I watch the film again, more of that will come back here, and I'll probably be like, fuck, I should have just mentioned that in the review, but it is what it is. So that'll be the end of my negatives here. So now let's get into my rating. So by far, this is easily the best Predator prequel that we've ever got here. But there's no doubt about that. In time, I'm sure when I watch the film again, especially in the years to come, I will probably have a difference in opinion about which film, as far as Prey and Predator is concerned, is the better film. Because there's something about this film that I thoroughly did enjoy, that I didn't really have a lot of expectations, but I was just hoping to at least be entertained. And I was more than just entertained. I actually felt like we've gotten a really great story with great characters. And the one thing I also forgot to mention too is that this movie is actually is really focusing on the Comanche tribe members here. And in the movie, they don't really speak a lot of the Comanche language here. But I know that when you watch the film on Hulu, it'll give you the option for you to be able to listen to the whole film in Comanche for every character that you see in this film, which I thought was really interesting. But they do have moments where they do speak in the Comanche language, but overall everyone speaks English, which I thought was a really unique take on that. But I thought that was something that was interesting to see, and I think this is actually the first and only time that so far that a film has been dubbed entirely in Comanche, which I'm actually going to be checking out in that dub version here when the movie gets released on Hulu. So I'm curious to see how that would play out, because I've never actually heard the Comanche language as far as I can recall off the top of my head here. But this movie is a lot of fun. I did enjoy it, and I would definitely go back and watch it again. And I would highly recommend you guys do check it out as well too. So for me, as far as my rating is concerned, this movie is a solid cheers. And those are my thoughts on the film. If you have seen the movie, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you share, like your videos, and hit the notification bell while you're down there. Follow NRW on social media. On Instagram, New Release Wednesdays. On Facebook, Nerds Rule the World. And on Twitter, at the NRW. You can follow me on my social media accounts. On Instagram and Twitter, Mr. Rob Medina. And on Facebook, simply just Rob Medina. And I have a show on the channel called You're So Cool with Rob Medina. And I have social media for the show as well. On Instagram, You're So Cool with Rob Medina. And on Twitter, You're So Cool WRM. And until next time, everybody, hope you guys enjoy this review. Stay safe out there, and cheers.